Tehran's nuclear ambitions have begun between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany. Officials from the 7 countries are in Geneva, Switzerland, in the hope of hammering out an agreement on the future of the nation's nuclear program. Iran sent shockwaves through the international community last week when it confirmed the existence of a second uranium enrichment plant. Tehran has said IAEA inspectors can view the state, but is yet to specify a date. Bar China, all 6 parties have sent senior delegations to the meeting. And for more on that meeting, we are now joined by Alexander Pikayev from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations. Hello to Mr. Pikayev. Thank you very much for joining us. What must Tehran do to satisfy the powers attending this meeting?
Well, actually, it is a very important meeting because, in fact, it's not the meeting just between the 6, but between the 7. For the first time, Iranians and Americans would sit around the same table to discuss a broad range of issues, including Iranian uranium enrichment program and Iranian nuclear program in general. So that there is a very big interest to this meeting, especially after the second uranium enrichment facility was discovered near the city of Qum. Iran informed, according to its international obligations about this facility, it notified International Atomic Energy Agency and said that he would accept international inspectors into the facility, which I believe was very important, positive gesture before the meeting.
And what do you think is the significance of China sending a lower-level delegation than the other nations? Well, do you think this means any attempts from the UN Security Council to impose further sanctions may face roadblocks?
So far, we are not talking about sanctions. So far, we are talking about negotiations. As I mentioned, for the first time, Americans and Iranians are sitting around the same table. Probably somebody is not very lucky. Maybe this is an explanation why the Chinese did not send a high-level delegation enough. But as long as there are chances to have an agreement, I believe prospects of the sanctions are not at the table. But definitely, if after a reasonable period of time, December is mentioned here, Iranians would continue to occupy its negative and aggressive position, defying the UN Security Council resolutions, well, sanctions might become back on the table, and there are prospects that this time even Russia and maybe even China would support much tougher sanctions against Iran. But it's still prospect. It's not what is discussing at this moment.
Also, last week, the US, UK, France and Germany talked about Iran's second plant. Do you think they're going to follow this up with actions?
Well, in terms of unilateral action, I think that Americans already exhausted their own sanctions capabilities because they already sanctioned everything possible in terms of the US-Iranian economic relations. Europeans have something to sanction else, but here we see clear disagreement between major European countries. And here again, the problem of second enrichment facility, it was exaggerated because evidently Western intelligence failed to find timely the facility. There was some overreaction, but still Iranians did not violate the international agreement with the Atomic Energy Agency. Iranians informed the agency about the facility, and now it is important Iran would disclose all details of its intentions and its past nuclear experiment it did.
And just very briefly, with troops in Afghanistan and Iraq, do you think the US can realistically take military action against Iran if it has to?
There is no any chance. As long as Americans are stuck in Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't see any prospects for American strike against Iran, simply because they need Iranian cooperation in face-saving withdrawal from Iraq, and they need Iranian assistance for settling situation in Afghanistan, and Iranians know that, Americans know that, so that Americans entering negotiations from the position of weakness, and this situation would continue for some time in the future.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. That was Alexander Pikayev from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations.